right. Rosa?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Valentine?
Yes.
Rega?
Yes.
Wenslaw?
Yes.
Timmons?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Burgett, yes. Jessup?
Excused.
Excused.
Okay. We'll now open for our first limited public comment of the evening's festivities. Please stand and state your name, and I believe that we have the little comment cards again, so I believe that you guys have filled them out. So I will open that at 7:01. Who wants to?
I have more of a question.
Okay,
During the PD
it's a public hearing, so yes.
public hearing, so during that time, we are allowed, within reason, to
It's a public hearing.
ask questions,
We're
and
here to hear the public.
that's good.
Yeah.
Just want to be sure.
That's what I'm waiting for too.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, hearing none for the general public comment, we'll close that and we'll go to approval of the agenda.
I would make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
We have
Second.
Valentine. We have a motion and we have a second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. With the agenda set, does anybody have a conflict of interest that they would like to disclose this evening? Hearing none, we'll be moving on. We have correspondence, an email received from Brian Kelly, 12:15. I'll read that into the record. Hi Carly, we always hope that good taste will prevail, but when I saw this creative use of metal, it made me wonder whether we are sufficiently protected from something like this in Acme, both as a new development and in the case of a remodel. As mentioned before, I have seen corrugated sheet metal used poorly in high-density residential construction, but this rises to a new level. I think the question is worth asking in all contexts, commercial, residential development by right, etc. Of course, corrugated is entirely appropriate in some cases. I suppose this wouldn't be quite so bad if the color matched the adjacent vertical surfaces. The use of corrugated for awnings is also interesting. If the sheet completely covered the support structure, it wouldn't be so bad. But the way it ends short, leaving the frame exposed, makes it look incomplete or ill-fitting. Since this applicant is apparently restricted in their use of metal trim, one wonders whether they could accomplish the same problematic look without regulatory restrictions by using wood or plastic with silver paint. Thanks, Brian. And there's a link to a restaurant remodel in Grand Rapids, an article on MLive. No other correspondence. So we'll open the public hearing for zoning ordinance amendment 037 for the planned development. We will open that public hearing at 7:04. Please stand, state your name, and tell us your thoughts.
Andy Andrus, representing the Andrus Trust. I noticed in some of the maps, and when John Eichelangelo was here last time, we had talked about that the Andruses aren't included or anything below 72. I know it's a generalized map, perhaps at this point, we'll get more detailed on it. But it was indicated that the 40 that the Andruses own could be a sending zone. And actually we are in the receiving zone also. So just a detail, as you go through this, if we're going to, just because of that, there's also, you've marked the Vasa as a receiving zone. So I'm not sure, whether you're going to really delineate the map in detail, or it's just kind of a generalization.
Okay.
And I am in full support of adding this to it. And I will ask that perhaps you do something a little daring. I know it's not part of the ordinance at this point, but just make suggestion that it needs to be on the radar, because it came up years ago at planning at the county level. I went in and seen them a few years ago about this, and that's at the time we had it on our desk and then put it off. Is you need to think about, or at least say that somebody has to start saying this, or somebody has to at least put it out there, that a township has mentioned it, that we need to talk about a land bank for sending and receiving. Because right now, it currently goes into Acme, and just Acme. So it would be great if we were thinking somewhere in the future that we're talking Grand Traverse County. As we begin to plan this, as we did the grand vision and where this density starts to go.
Okay.
Okay? So, with that, I hope you pass it, and I hope it becomes part of our zoning, because the Anderses have building rights that they're ready to do.
Okay,
Okay?
thanks, Andy. Who else? Rochelle?
Yeah. On the first page of that PD, number 1, there is a word that, to me, is ambiguous, I guess. And number 1, if you read through that, number 1, which is substantially in accord with the goals and objectives of the Township Master Plan and future land use map. Substantially seems to me that it could be changed. I mean, it could be different things. Not all of what the land use map or the master plan has pointed out. Wouldn't it be better if they use consistent with? And I guess, there's more of that kind of stuff I have questions on, but that was one of them.
Okay. Anything else for the public hearing for the plan development? Hearing none, we'll close that at 7:07. Okay. Showman. In lieu of John being here, did you want to say anything about the planned development?
No, I mean, the map that he included, that's the first time I've seen it. He sent it for this packet. And, when I read through the sending and receiving, I don't know that it specifically says that all sending particles are ag and all receiving particles are not ag, but that's the way the map illustrates that. So, I don't know if that's intentional or if that's common with the PD. I don't know, it wouldn't make much sense for a single-family home to send their development rights somewhere else on a small lot. So maybe that's just because that's where we have larger parcels in excess of development rights that can be sent. But we do have, like in the case of Mr. Anders, large parcels in the residential zone. So I don't know if there needs to be something added that considers those, or if it just happened to be overlooked in this process. Because we have some that are designated as receiving zones that in our future land mass, our area, or map, are designated as future conservation areas. So it doesn't make necessarily sense that those are places to receive higher density if we're at the same time trying to preserve them.
Okay.
So.
Does everybody understand what's the word I'm looking for?
Yes.
Just,
Oh,
yeah,
density
that'll
transfer.
work. Kind of the contradiction that exists in the map. Okay, so noting that that's a situation, the last version only had a map of where it was allowed, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess my question would be is, what's the purpose of this map is just to define where they can happen?
Yeah, that was asked for at the last planning commission meeting. Someone asked, could we have a map to see where the sending and receiving would go?
Okay.
It does seem like it could go both ways though, because if you're in the ag and maybe a neighbor, I don't know, sells 40 acres and you want to give some density to him and send your land and make it preserve.
Right, I mean, there's a whole part about, I just read this today, but I'm not gonna remember. Talking about promoting and preserving the agricultural,
Yeah.
I mean, so that would make you think that the PD would be allowed to be received in the A1 as well. I guess that was the assumption that I had. Like
Yeah,
you
me
do.
too.
Like, I guess, anybody have a thought? Because I have a thought. My thought would be like this map would be for reference, but not referencing or included in the ordinance. Like, I'm trying to think back to last month, seems so far away. But I feel like we were talking about just trying to figure out where these parcels that are big enough to send are.
Yeah.
That's how I remember.
Wasn't that, because we were talking about like, well, where are these pieces of land that this is happening and everything? Does anybody else have any insight or great memory?
Brian.
And I don't think it's,
You could just ask for a map in general.
Yeah.
just to see it for
just to
us.
see it, yeah.
Not for,
This way.
I don't think anything in it limits to the sending parcels specifically being ag and ag only, though. When you look at the language.
can,
Would that be something we can clear up with John and I before it goes to the county?
yeah, but we would have to give direction kind of prior to sending that on. So I guess it's like the question of, do we delay it a month? Jeff, do you have any great thoughts? You're smart.
Well, I agree that there's nothing, that I don't see anything in the ordinance that, I was just trying to read it as that discussion was happening, that designates a division between districts or a receiving and a sending district. And I tend to agree, I don't know why there would be a limitation on a receipt and send from one of those into the same, or vice versa. Or, I suppose, if you had it, one from the receiving to the sending. But I don't know what, John's intention or thought was with that. I will say, there are a couple other things that I noticed. There are some references to R1s, 2s, and 3s, and some other things in here that should be cleaned up before it goes on or is recommended for approval anyway.
Okay,
So maybe
we do take another
holding it
month.
off for the, you've gotten, not a lot of comments, but that you've had a public hearing.
They should know.
You don't need, yeah, I mean, they were good comments, but you just don't have a lot. So it's unlikely that a
If we
few
don't have a
tweaks are
lot,
gonna bring
I
a
feel
lot of.
okay with that.
Yeah, well, what I mean is, you have the ability to make minor changes to the version that you publish for public hearing, without having to hold another public hearing.
Okay.
And,
When I read through these minutes, though, it does say that Mr. White thought we should keep it in referencing the agricultural zone. And it looks like the discussion that followed, PC members thought PD was a good idea as an additional option and provides flexibility. So I mean, in our own minutes, we reflected that we wanted ag to be included in the properties where it's available to, I mean, basically you could send and or, well, not and or, send or receive as an ag property, depending on what you want to do.
That's the way I thought it was. It didn't matter where you were at. I didn't think he was talking about receiving. I go over and talk to anybody on basically the north side of 72 and then shift it to the south side.
Yeah.
I thought,
Well-
like Carly was saying, I could walk across my neighbor and say, hey, I've got these this 40 here, or I could have both 40s and move everything over onto one so that the development all happens on this 40 and nothing on that one.
Yeah.
Which, could be something that one of the farmers would want to do, or a landholder out on that, in that area.
Yeah.
I don't see why it should be set at, it goes here, and everybody over here, unless if you let me double dip, like I want to, Carly.
No, you can't take your PDR property and sell the development rights. You already did that. Well, I think that this map is just
It's a
confusing.
little misleading and maybe.
And if you're a
That's what
user
it says
of
to
the
me, but
document,
that's what it's saying, that map.
Yeah.
right.
From-
So if you're a user of this document, like this would just make you think it's not possible with any of those properties, like you said, pretty much south of 72. So this map has to get either fixed or gone. I would think it could just be gone. I don't
think
see.
so too. I
I
mean,
mean,
'cause I don't,
basically, it's
I
a
don't know what
parcel by
it's
parcel
represents.
basis. If he comes
Yeah.
in and he says, we wanna do a PD on this property, you look into, okay, where are you getting your credits from and what do you wanna do, and you figure out if it works.
Mhm.
What page?
Page 3.
We have a couple of questions here. Is that okay?
Public comment
Thank
is
you.
closed.
Oh, it's closed?
Go ahead.
Well,
are they?
there's some because it says here, on density transfer, will permit residential density to transfer from one parcel to another. So according to this, we're just talking about residential property.
Where do you?
Page 3, lines 21, 22, and 23.
I think that you're looking at residential outside of, it's not referring to zoning, it's referring to what the densities are. You're transferring the amount of residential density that you can have on a parcel. So I think that's not referring to the zoning of a parcel. It's saying what you are sending are the residential density units.
Right.
Right? Like, you're not sending zoning, it's not saying that only residential can be sending these zoning, but what you're trying to accomplish generally by transferring these densities is a different residential density of units.
Instead of
Well,
business density.
well, it's kind of like in what Ryan Doug was saying, can agricultural property,
Yeah, this is
I mean,
regardless
can
of.
somebody decide to build a subdivision in the middle of a farm?
So on an agricultural property, you have X number of residential units that you can build.
Okay,
And on a residential property, you have X number of residential.
okay.
So it's talking about those residential units, not the type of zoning. I can see why that's confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's referring to the residential density of the parcel, which even agricultural land, I don't know why I'm pointing at you, has residential density.
Right.
It's just 1 per 5 acres.
One every 5 acres.
Okay,
So if you want to transfer residential density, if you have two 40-acre parcels that can have 8 houses, the way this reads is you could transfer some of those houses from, the option to build those houses from this piece of land to this piece of land.
right. But can,
Assuming you meet all this other stuff.
okay, so this is a farm that has a potential of whatever you
Yeah.
said. And then over here is urban. Now can the urban transfer back to the farm? And do urban
Theoretically,
density in the farm?
Yes, but to be ascending, you'd have to meet all the
You would
criteria for
actually,
ascending
yeah.
parcel.
And it's
Okay.
not designed to circumvent the density limitations. It would be a
Okay.
disadvantage to do that, because now you're taking a density that you have in the urban and sending it to an area where you now have a lower density. So
Right.
you're actually losing your developmental density by going that way.
Right,
Yes.
but people might think to do that. And what is there in this to prevent that from happening? Since we're
Well, again, the
protecting the
fact that
farmlands.
you can't exceed necessarily the density that's already required or limited
You mean
in
Oh,
that
okay.
district.
The
So,
zone area.
Okay.
in that zoned area, you know, so if you have 40
Okay.
acres overall, that 40 acres can have 8 units. You know, if Doug has 40 acres and I have 40, I can't send my 8 units to him. Marcy can't send him 8 units. He can't end up with 18 on that 40 acres because now you're exceeding the density for that district. It gives you an option to move some of that density around in some cases to protect land anywhere it's going to balance out a little bit, but you can't just overload a lot or a parcel
And
just for the sake of it.
It says that you can't increase the maximum allowable density by more than 50%. So if he had 5, you can't send more than 2 over to him in this example,
Okay.
because he can't increase by more than a 50% increase.
Yep.
Okay.
The other thing is, it says the density transfer will benefit the township by protecting developable land with conservation value on the sending parcel.
Okay.
So ideally, you're sending these from somewhere we want to conserve.
Protect.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're not just trying to give people ways to like, you know, build the Truman Show in the middle of Brackett Road. That movie was awesome.
And then on the word of protection, on page 7, number 4,
Yeah.
The market
study.
market study, traffic impact study, and/or. I don't think there should be an and/or there. Take out the or. Environmental. I think that's every bit as important in that study.
Okay.
Who is it
Environmental
that
impact.
decides the criteria that it's requested? Would that go through like office staff?
The PC or the
Yeah, there's like a,
Board of Trustees.
before they submit their application, there's like a pre-meeting that we would talk about it. Because an environmental impact assessment, I mean, that's a pretty big, costly, time-consuming process. If we're talking a few residential
Like
developments that we're transferring, you're gonna make them do an
Transferring
environmental
two
impact
units.
assessment, that would be overkill in a way. But now if we're talking about a huge
If they
development,
want to take a 400-acre parcel and make
Yes.
like a little resort of some sort where you're going to have high traffic load coming in out of a point where you didn't before, then it would be, like traffic would be necessary. But like 2 extra units on a 20-acre parcel,
Don't need traffic.
it's probably not going to be, so that's why.
So maybe you
have
could
to
put minimums and,
like set thresholds.
or thresholds, yeah.
Well, this
Um,
gives us the opportunity and the board to do all 3 of those if we.
Yeah, and that's already
So-
there in other parts of the ordinance too. This is something impact study though, not a true environmental impact assessment. I know like the RV park, they had to do one when they came in. That was asked of them from the planning commission.
Well, the whole Meyer development, when that was going on, they had to do the big traffic study and all the other stuff because of the impact that it had. So like, I would just say thresholds are hard, because then we're tied to that threshold. What if something, I don't know, unforeseen, they don't increase the residential units very much, but the use is gonna create more traffic? Then we still want the impact study because of the use, but not because of the residential units, but we have this threshold, so we can't make them do it.
Is there a way that Jeff could word it?
I don't know. Jeff is a wordsmith.
Yes, he is.
But I think whenever we try to get more specific, we can shoot ourselves in the foot.
But you have specifics there, but you've taken the most protection, the thing that needs the most protection and made it kind of
Those could be in
minimalized
any
it.
order, though.
Yeah, as long as they're,
But I mean, regardless of what order they are in this point number 4, it's saying we can pick from any of these 3 and say yes or no, we want each or all of them, right? So we could require an environmental impact assessment, but not require a market study or a traffic impact study.
right.
So these are not put in any order to signify importance. They're put in order to signify, these are the kinds of things we can ask for people to do,
May or may not. That's
may or may not.
right.
But honestly, I mean, it's a little bit unfair if someone wants to put 2 more houses on a lot to make them do all 3 of these.
Well, maybe within reason. I mean, isn't there something that could be worded so that you discuss the environmental?
I mean, we're always just, I mean,
I know.
you're acting like you completely disregard any environmental
No, I'm not,
impact.
I'm not thinking
If
of
it comes
you.
in and it's a
I'm-
mud bogging track right on Acme Creek,
I'm thinking if you're not
probably
there,
gonna have to look at the
we
environmental
may.
impact. I know, I'm just saying, well, I guess I'll open it up to everybody if
Right.
anybody has an opinion
I agree.
on 4 and how we should word that. Or if Jeff has a thought. Are you just doing a crossword over there?
Do you know the answer for 4 down? No, I'm not doing a crossword, see, I got it.
Page 7, 4.
So you can come up with standards for it. You could come up with, I mean, the general way to come up with a standard would be an acreage, or a density, or a use type. Those would be the 3 ways to consider that. I mean, I'm hearing all of the discussion. I don't have a policy opinion necessarily as to what you should or shouldn't do. I mean, you can craft a standard. You're right. Sometimes you might find that it's not within the standard when you like it, or it's outside the standard when you wouldn't like it. When you have the ability to determine whether you want one, you have some more flexibility.
Everyone's gonna be different. This gives us 3 options of what we can do to each different one that comes through. By taking an or out doesn't change the fact that they're getting away from having to do an environmental assessment or a traffic impact study or whatever,
If you want one.
if we want one.
And they still have to take environmental protection, I mean, we still have the stormwater ordinance
Yeah,
that
all those
applies,
requirements
those are
you still
still
have to
there.
do.
This is like, if the scale of it's large enough, and we have additional concerns, and we may ask for this assessment as well.
Or the use is intense enough.
Yeah,
What's the other one? Acreage, density, or use?
Those are the 3 that I threw out.
Yeah.
As a
when you say use
type.
type,
You
because
know,
another
it's
one
a-
that gets used a lot is trip generation, which is tied to use. And that can be troubling too, because take something like a McDonald's and an apartment building. McDonald's is probably gonna have higher trip generation, but this is a bigger impervious surface, the apartments, and so the larger impervious surface might miss the threshold. When in reality, we should probably look at that more than something smaller. So that's just an example of like, when you start setting thresholds, you kind of limit yourself sometimes to what you can ask for in addition
And
to.
that's a good example, because when you say the impervious or pervious, to me, then you're gonna start to look at the environmental assessment. The other one, when you say trip generation, that's gonna trigger the traffic impact study that we're gonna
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
so that you look at each one differently.
Mhm.
Okay. Anybody else have a thought on this? Okay.
Oh, did you, Andy? Did you know?
Yeah.
Think of it as a precursor. So if I want to grab 10 units to build on my property, I'm coming to ask you and have the pre-meeting beforehand, and then we're going to discuss what all is involved there. If you say that yes, you can, when I start to go through all the design of building and construction, all those other zoning ordinances that make you do all of those steps are certainly solidified and built in strong there. So this is kind of to get, what I don't want to do is spend a fortune to come to you before I get an answer, because what it does is it could make the project, collapse. And you alluded to that, if you're going to build 2 units, by the time you purchase them and then you do the studies, it's not worth grabbing the 2 units.
Right.
And then you're defeating the purpose of the receiving and sending zones to build that density. So I think of it as kind of a precursor thing here.
If we take this map out, just as a note, on page 5, the very first, number 4, which is in line 2, should be removed. It says the density transfer will be consistent with the sending and receiving zone designated on the township zoning map. Right?
Yep.
Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
Will we get a clarification on that?
On the
I mean,
map?
last time John was here, he said because we had R1, not a problem.
Yeah,
What I'm looking for is a definitive answer before it goes to a final gavel.
yeah.
Because
Well,
then you
I
can't
think
add
we
in-
decided that Jeff wants to clean some of this up. And so I think that we're not gonna be taking any action on this tonight. Except for maybe we could probably send it to county for
I would wait.
review.
I would
You'd
wait.
Okay,
Because we'll be able to, next month, if you desire, send it to county and board at the same
Okay.
time. And then if the county has concerns, the board will see that and they'll kick it back to you all then.
Yep.
Just to keep the ball moving.
does anybody else have any questions? The PD? Note the changes on the,
And then that last map they have, I would just, it still has PUD, I would change it to PD, just so we're consistent.
catch. See, because this map says they're all allowed.
Yeah, it's confusing.
I know. That's why I think that other map just needs to go away.
Well, it would be nice for John to say, look, this is what I want to do. You know,
Right.
Maybe he feels he
But
needs
he's
to
not the
improve.
one who gets to decide, we are.
I know, but maybe he needs to eliminate the map more or explain to you why he wanted them. I mean, he put them in there for a reason.
Yeah. I think it was just executed weirdly.
Okay.
So I think we'll revisit unless anyone,
Well, that'll give us the
yeah,
reason first for that map, right? So that we'll get a chance to
Sure.
know what that reason is, if there's any question, right? So.
yeah. You understand what we're all saying. So when you talk to John,
Yep.
if there's some overwhelming evidence of why this map was so omitted,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we revisit it, but if not, it just maybe goes away.
Yep.
Including number 4. If it goes away, so would 4. The one that references,
Line 2. Which page?
and we should make sure the minutes clearly reflect that the sentiment is that R1 or residential and agricultural would be included. All right, anything else from anyone?
Question.
Yo.
I don't understand what paragraph 5 is saying. I thought that the purpose of transferring density was to increase the number of, let's say, residential units on a piece of property. You know, if it's 1 per acre in the standard zoning, this would, by transferring density, you'd go to maybe 2 units per acre. But that paragraph leads me to believe that that's not what we're doing.
I'm on page 5, number 5?
5,
Page
yeah,
number
5.
Yeah.
We also have 2 4s in a row lower on that
Circled
page.
that.
Yeah. This was in here in the last version of it,
Yeah.
because I think, I don't want to pretend to remember.
It just seems like it's saying that you can transfer density, but you're not going to increase the number of units per acre, or whatever it originally was.
Right, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is where you have like the clause that says unless waived by the planning commission, and that's where like the ability to get over the zoning district densities comes in.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like it's not meant to circumvent zoning by just letting people build at
Right.
crazy densities, so
Right.
it's left to discretion, which
Okay.
is something I was under the assumption we weren't allowed to have. But in this ordinance, we get a little bit of it.
well, that's part of what I want to go through, and when for the density transfer, that part is probably clarified, although it's not worded very well, because if the planning commission waives it, the board still has to approve it, because the board has to approve all planning, or all density transfers. I mean, so the planning commission's waiver would not be a, you know, exercising that, it would be a board decision.
Well, it says unless
So-
waived by the planning commission and the board.
Right, and the board. So, I mean, well, I suppose, yeah, you'd have to do it.
Emphasis on the
anyway.
and.
Yeah. So there's just, yeah, I have a note on a couple things like that to talk with And what
procedural.
I'd like to talk with John is about his intent and then maybe reword some of these
Okay.
things to make them more clear.
Any other questions? So we will revisit this in February.
Yes.
Everybody seems really excited. We have no new business tonight. We're gonna go right to old business. Sean?
I spoke to the township board on Tuesday, and they gave the nod to go ahead for us to look into coming up with some sort of ordinance, like police power ordinance, to regulate food trucks and tent sales. At least to explore it and draft it and stuff like that. Let's start with the tent sales. We talked about making it police power, I think, at the last meeting. In your packet, Garfield Township sent me theirs. They actually have it in the zoning ordinance, and it's very clean and simple, and it's listed under supplemental regulations. And so if you take a peek at that, I'm just wondering, instead of a police power, if we just put it in our zoning ordinance, it doesn't require a permit, you just have to meet those qualifications. What you guys think of that? I can go over that with you if you will. It's just simply, if you're already a retail establishment and you want to have a tent sale, which is the extension of your business that you're already selling, or your goods you're already selling, then you're allowed to do that. A maximum of 30 days a year. So if you want to do 2 weeks in the spring, 2 weeks in the fall, fine, that's your right. You've already been approved for this retail establishment. You can't block the circulation pattern for, emergency vehicles and things like that. And if you meet those standards, then that's okay.
So then would that automatically, like if Kmart wanted to rent out part of their parking lot, that would make it null and void because it's not from their?
Yes. Or if a fireworks store or a fireworks company wanted to have a tent for a couple of weeks in front of one of our big parking lots, that would not be allowed through that supplemental regulation because it's a second party coming in and operating there. Now, I asked Garfield because I've seen boat sales in the Grand Traverse Mall parking lot, and there's only 3 properties where that can actually happen: Grand Traverse Mall, Cherryland Mall, and the Meyer property. And that's an ordinance that they're actually looking at getting rid of even. But that was kind of written into the planned commercial zoning district that those 3 properties fall into. So, in other words, if we did it this way, something like a fireworks tent in the Meyer parking lot wouldn't be allowed. But Woodland Creek doing their annual sale in the parking lot, that would be allowed.
Or the fireworks store setting up a fireworks tent in their parking lot would be allowed.
That would be allowed. Yeah. So, but it can't be another business. It has to be that business.
Maybe they just like to work outside.
And so maybe Jeff would like to comment if he thinks putting it in the zoning ordinance like that would be better than a police power, or if we should make it a police power.
I mean, I
ordinance.
think, well, if it's tied to the existing use, which is what Garfield's, this is the definition, I pulled that myself. If it's tied to the existing use, so, the example was Woodland Creek, then it kind of fits from your consideration of the review of the use in itself, right, from the zoning ordinance. Because as you're reviewing it, part of the ordinance would allow them to do a tent 30 days a year, and so you'd be contemplating that as you're reviewing it and saying, okay, yeah, we're okay with a natural furniture store displaying their goods in a tent for 30 days. We know that's going to happen. That's fine from a legal perspective. I don't have any issue with that. It's certainly different than what was partially discussed and why a police power ordinance or a separate ordinance to that effect makes sense when you're dealing with something that's not related to the use. You do have, I think, did you include special events ordinance?
I put ours in here,
You
yeah.
do have the special events ordinance, which does allow some things. It doesn't really allow, like, the tent sales, but it does allow someone to have a car show in the Meyer parking lot under the special events ordinance. So you do have some of that already. What you don't have is that fireworks tent, or I don't know, really frankly, I don't know any other examples other than the fireworks tents offhand
Yeah.
around, at least that I can think of around here. But the point of it is you've got
Boat sales.
Boat, there you go, boat sales, yeah. Frankly, I didn't even think of that. I mean, I see them inside
Yeah.
the mall, I suppose.
No, they're outside like once a
Um,
year, they take
yeah.
up like that whole
Okay.
section of, anyway.
So, well, that wouldn't be allowed unless, you know, Meyer starts selling boats, and I suppose then they could arguably say they're having a boat sale.
But if it's an extension of their business, like it's not like Rob can contract for like IKEA to come set up like a one-day show. It's like for Rob to sell his own businesses
Yeah, I think.
goods, which we
yes.
shouldn't focus on one example.
But that's a good
um,
example because he's kind of
'cause
doing
he's
it.
doing
He's
it.
got a big
Yeah.
area to do it.
Right, but it's not like he's setting up and having his other furniture buddies sell. It's
Right.
his company is, so.
Yeah.
If Meyer started selling boats, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they'd want more
So-
outdoor sales space, though.
I think so. From the planning commission's perspective, if the planning commission were interested in allowing that sort of outdoor tent sale tied to the actual use, and you wanted to do it through the zoning ordinance, then that would be something to add to the ordinance and have a review and a public hearing on it and that sort of thing. If you're still interested in doing other tent sales or contemplating that and asking the board to adopt an ordinance to do that, then that would be something separate.
Let's poll the group.
I have a question about the actual tent. Is it a standard tent? I mean, they can't just put up like a Barney tent or anything, right?
At this point, they.
Like the color, you mean? Like what it looks like?
Yeah.
What do you mean Barney? Like
I mean, there's,
have a big purple dinosaur on it?
yeah, I mean, what kind of, are we just saying anybody can put up, I mean, anybody that owns their building, is there a standard tent besides the red and white one? I mean, are we assuming that that's the kind of tent they're gonna use? Or can they arbitrarily use any kind of strange?
If they can get their hands on a giant Barney tent, as of right now, we definitely don't have any regulation for it.
But do you see what I mean?
Isn't the building codes?
Yeah, I thought there's,
Have rented buildings?
Yeah, there's the
Something
rent,
like
like the rental type, but I think even having a 10-by-10 pop-up canopy would fall under this too, wouldn't it? Yeah, so it's like, yeah.
Are you getting it appearance or are you getting it safety of structure?
I was actually, I was thinking about the safety at first, but then I thought after, well, probably at the same time as reading Brian's memo about that strange thing down the state.
Yeah, it's not that strange. The metal.
I didn't actually look at it
Did you?
online,
I
but
looked at it.
It's brands, all brands look like that.
Yeah, it's
Anyway,
just kind of a little more industrial look to that particular.
just because you don't like
restaurant.
it doesn't mean someone else doesn't. I don't know what to tell you there.
And it was more subtle than I thought.
Yeah, there's companies that rent all different size tents, and they'll actually pound stakes right through the asphalt.
Yeah.
And they'll still get blown over in the storm of the century.
Right through the sprinkler system like they did mine.
Is a building permit needed to obstruct those tents?
They're not regulated by the building code office.
Okay.
You really have to have a tent for a tent sale? I'm just asking.
Well,
You
That's just outdoor sales.
Garfield's is outdoor, yeah, there's no tent.
There's
I mean, like,
Most people have at least
They have a
uh,
fenced-in area.
Rain.
Because
Well,
if
I'm
you're
thinking
gonna do it
like,
for 2 weeks, you're gonna not wanna carry everything in and out every day.
no, I'm thinking like Myers, don't they at the other store on the other side of town, don't they have like their garden stuff out in the summer, out in the parking lot? Like plants and all that kind of stuff, you know, like,
They have it up along the building.
It's a designated area
Yeah.
that's blocked off.
It's just like our tractor supply, like they have that outdoor area that's designated.
right, but
Well,
what
No,
if,
no, they put like pumpkins and stuff by
Oh,
the
they
front
move them
door.
out, yes, right.
what if this store that's over here
They're
on
pushing
Locker
soil and stuff.
put their garden stuff out front? Could you do
Yeah.
that? I mean, would this
Oh,
enable
the
them
Meyer.
to do that?
No,
And if
Well-
a property's special use permit says no outdoor sales or storage, then they can't do a tent sale.
Correct.
So, you know, I think, is that getting,
Yeah, but a tent, but you don't really need to have a tent, it's just an outdoor sale, just selling your merchandise outside the building.
but for a limited period of time.
Right.
I guess I'm in favor of that. I don't like necessarily the of those kinds, but I think that we should allow people that have businesses to sell things outside their store if they would like to do, you know, an end of series clearance kind of thing.
Yeah.
See, I agree that they should be able to do it. I just don't want some gaudy tent, I guess, if you really want to know.
I can't imagine that any business would either, because it's all about curb appeal.
Well,
Well,
everybody has different tastes. Let's not assume things, Mercy.
Yeah.
So you say gaudy tent, here's my question, is signage.
That's what I have too, like,
Like,
do
what
we-
do you do about signage?
Yeah. Are they
Because I'm
allowed?
gonna wanna slap a giant clearance and like one of those big squiggly balloons, and then like get it while it's here on the side, and then, so I don't know.
Didn't Garfield have something?
Don't you still have to apply for a temporary sign permit?
Yeah.
That's all, I don't want us to look.
But those are only for 14 days, right?
60.
Oh, those are up to 60
You can have a
days?
total of 60 days of temporary sign usage throughout the calendar year.
I don't want that.
Dan, can I ask what you think? I'm just gonna poll people to see, we have two different types of outdoor sales being discussed. The first one is extensions of joint businesses. The second one is like fireworks in a Meyer parking lot, a third-party sales. I just wanna poll everyone to see how they feel, if they would like to share about those two different types, and then we can discuss each type. Is that a good structure for this?
Sure.
Because I think otherwise we're gonna get confused.
I think as far as if it's an extension of what they sell currently,
Uh-huh.
or can be kind of related, I would say yes. If it's not, then I hate to just say no. I would say maybe there should be a different set of criteria if it's not related to what they're currently selling.
Okay.
I pretty much agree, and that if it's not what they're selling, that they should have to get a special permit.
Okay. But extension of the business.
Is fine.
Okay.
But nothing ugly.
That's in the eye of the
No gaudy.
Yeah, what you may think is ugly,
Kids might say, hey, look at that
I
tent,
know,
let's
a
go.
giant Barney tent. I thought about Barney, you know what?
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you have any comment on unrelated business tent sales?
No, my comments are more to whether it should
Okay.
be zoning or special.
Okay.
I
Deb?
agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with it being as long as it's an extension of the business.
Unrelated, how do you feel about unrelated businesses?
Yeah, it has to be.
Different set of criteria, or?
I think so. Because you're gonna wanna look at it
Yeah.
in detail.
Yeah, I agree with that. Extension of business, yes, if it's third party or
Okay.
non-party business, and look at it.
Marth?
I agree.
You already said, okay.
I think though that if it is a different type of a business, that maybe there should be a charge for it.
Okay, well, let's back up. What, if it's an extension of the business, what are some concerns that we have that Sean and possibly Jeff could look at as far as including in something like this that would be included in our ordinance?
How about duration? We'll start with that.
Okay.
Number of days a year.
30's a pretty good.
30's probably pretty good. Doesn't have to be used all at once. Okay, so,
My only comment on that, 30 days is a whole month,
so
and
do,
everyone's gonna do it from mid-July to mid-August. So we're
So-
just gonna have tents everywhere in the middle of
30
summer.
total calendar days, not to exceed 14 continuous days.
I'm not like necessarily advocating, I'm just saying, we know when everybody will do this. And it will all be at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, if
And
you're-
so we're
if
looking at
you're
a
saying-
month.
Yeah.
If you're saying 30 days, but it's gotta be two different calendars, so I take the last 15 days of July and the first 15 days of August, I got my 30 days.
You're
But then that'd
always
be-
looking for ways to get around things.
Well, you gotta look to the
Yeah.
worst side. I mean, that's,
No, I agree.
but, I don't think anybody's gonna, maybe my thinking's that
But at the same, I
they're not
guess,
gonna run a sale for the 30 days. It's gonna,
at the same time, it's expensive to put up those tents, I'm
You gotta
guessing.
rent it that time.
Yeah, and so like, you know, it's a cost benefit thing for a store owner. If we limit them to 14 days, are we essentially making it cost prohibitive for them to have the event? I'm just arguing both sides of everything right now.
if you rent that Barney tent, they're gonna want it.
See?
for that
I know,
30 days.
people are gonna be showing up in droves.
Imagine having 14 tents in a row and they're all different colors. Oh, in July.
That's what we call a carnival.
Yeah, exactly what I'm opposed to.
So we have concerns about the ugliness, concerns about signage.
Well, let me back up, because I want to get some of this so we can actually get a draft for ourselves for next
Okay.
time. So duration, max calendar year. Suggestions, stick with 30? Okay. Do we want to set a duration, a continuous limitation? Like, not at this time? Okay, and again, what it's gonna come back to is just gonna be a draft anyway, so you guys will have a chance to review and work with it more, but
And we'll think about it too.
that's good. Appreciate that. Okay. Next part of it.
What about a minimum number of days? Is this something that you have to apply for a permit to do?
No, because right now we're talking about existing businesses, having an extension of it, just outdoors.
This will just like,
Okay.
if we're using the Woodland Creek example, it would be like Rob's gonna have his clearance sale in August. He gets his tent, sets it up. We don't need to know about it.
Okay.
He's allowed to do that.
Okay.
I do think, on this though, we should probably say something about unless it's otherwise prohibited by like special use permit, even though that's redundant, because it is. I don't know what Jeff's thought about it is, but sometimes people like to argue with us when we say, no, your permit doesn't allow it, and they say, but look, it says in the zoning ordinance we can.
Yeah, I mean, we could,
It just seems like an easy place to like reiterate, unless otherwise banned, outdoor sales are otherwise banned or restricted in your permit.
Yeah, you could add that, that would make sense. What I suspect is, if I have a parcel that says outdoor sales are prohibited, I'll be here asking for a minor amendment to my,
That's
to my
fine.
SUP to relieve me
But like-
from that prohibition.
You know, Tractor Supply has a lot of outdoor sales space,
Mhm.
so, and that's limited, and that's what they can have.
Mhm.
Do we also feel like a tent is appropriate there? I'm not really saying it is or it isn't, but I know we talked a lot about how much outdoor sales space they have and how it could be displayed and how high it could be, which, like, God, they have a lot of pellets out there right now. If anybody wants wood pellets, I know where you can get them. So I'm just thinking about the arguments we're going to have with people, and it's gonna be like, well, you're letting everybody else do it, but why not me? Golf store. He'll be in here like, you allow outdoor sales now for 30 days, but still not me. I'm just,
no, I know, but.
you know
in
you're
their-
gonna have that
and I would-
conversation.
In our case, it'd be easy, like, you put up a tent, now you're impeding the traffic flow, and it says you can't do it. So,
Right.
in a lot of these cases, if their parking lot
Which-
isn't of size.
I made a note, like, is there some way we could do like a portion of parking or something like that? Like, I also think of Advanced Auto,
Mhm.
Goodwill, like, they really don't have big parking lots. So
So-
then, if they're on 72, which we also probably need to take out the major thoroughfare thing, that seems stupid.
Yeah, I mean, this is
This is
Garfield.
Garfield's.
Yeah.
I know, I'm
so-
just saying, like,
Okay, yeah.
that probably doesn't work here. But I just think about like the parking lot thing. This
Well-
goes back to the whole conversation earlier about being ambiguous.
Well, this would be a case where
What-
thresholds might be more
What's an
appropriate.
impediment to traffic? I mean, Rob's got a parking lot that he could, you know,
Land
Turn semis
helicopter.
around.
I
Yeah.
think he does that,
So
doesn't
you're
he?
saying set the max square footage on
I have
the
seen
tent,
the
4% of total parking?
Yeah, I'm saying that's a possibility,
Okay,
that you could bring up to the
planning commission.
commission.
These are some of the thresholds that could be mentioned. Making a size limitation on the tent, having a maximum square footage, or stating that a maximum percent of the parking lot can be occupied by
I
the
like
tent.
that one.
Maybe we could just say it has to be a neutral colored tent. If we're gonna put the size, we could have a,
Just write it
we
down.
don't have
just
to have
read
like
it back.
Okay.
purple and red next to each other with yellow and green and just have it look hideous.
I think the company that rents them in Traverse only has white and then red and white.
Yeah. GJ's tents
Yep.
or
Yeah,
whatever,
black and
yeah.
gold.
Oh, that would
They have
be.
black and gold too.
There's an orange and brown.
There's a
See,
green and
who's
Now
to
you're
say
gonna
they're not
scare
gonna get their
guys.
own tent someplace
Okay.
else?
All right,
Or tie
It
dye.
could be-
It's all.
it could be in the draft.
Beauty
All the
of
school
the eye
colors,
of the
I think
beholder.
Tie-dye would be kind of
I
interesting.
just don't want us to look like
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Okay, signage,
I mean, we're
Do
already
you have that
selling, and
figured
we're
out?
wonderful.
Before we move too far,
With
let's
a bunch
Okay.
of
try to wrap up
hotels.
size.
I don't know that you can put a size down there. It'd be tough to, but I think you're good with the percentage
Of
because
the parking lot?
that's gonna be important to, you know, for the impeding the traffic and the very free parking. You're gonna want a percentage of that open, so you don't impede on that.
See, what, in your opinion, would be a reasonable percent that wouldn't impede?
Yeah, and that's tough too, because you gotta look at,
weird parking lot.
Layout is an issue in
Yeah.
the parking lot, yeah, consider.
say you have to maintain 75% of your parking, including all barrier free
All
or something
barrier
like that.
So like, Jeff, my question for you is if we feel, Sean feels as the ZA, that there's a tent that goes up that is impeding traffic because people can't turn around and get in and out of the property, whatever is in here then, is this, like, say, take this example here, is that strong enough for him to go and like shut it down?
Good question.
I don't know whether that question's answerable yet, because we don't have total fleshed out of language.
Right.
But I think, so I pulled this off Garfield's website today, and I think that they actually have an application that gets signed by Rob or I don't know, Brian maybe or something, that has the, see, I'm not sure if this is the right one though, because it has property owner and applicant. But
I
you
think
could
that's
have
the other one.
You could have one that says, you know, you have the right to do it for 30 days, but before you do it, you've got to come into the zoning administrator and show us where and how it's going to be placed, and then you get your permit, so that way you're more easily tracking it, you know, you don't have someone say, well, no, I put it up on the 1st, when Sean says, I'm pretty sure you put it up on the
That'd be
27th
So
from the
like-
month
Just like we do with a
before.
So
temporary sign.
you
then
know.
do you have a fee?
Yeah, well, you could have a small
Well, if Sean
fee.
is spending his time, theoretically, the township would want to have a fee associated with that because he's valuable.
Yeah, you could have a fee, I mean, it wouldn't require a whole lot of,
This is a lot like what we do with the temporary sign. You come in, I review it real quick, it's a $40 fee, it's dated, it's signed by both parties, it's agreed upon, expiration date there. Especially if they don't want to use all 30 days at once, or in case they sign all 60, like we only want it for the first 14, then they can be held accountable too, because those dates are given.
Okay.
And then that goes in their file, and then we know that they have more dates available later, and there is that documentation trail. So it's not a bad idea to have a simple prevent.
I think though that if it's a business that's selling products that they already have, I guess I don't mind like the $40 fee, but I think it should be like a 1-year fee. And so, okay, so they pay the first time and maybe they have to come in and fill out other permits if they don't want all 30 days. But because we have the track record, I don't think they should be charged each time because they already pay the taxes and everything else.
it could be that as long as the tent's in the same location, even if it's reconstructed, do whatever, that they just have to come in and tell Sean what dates it'll be up again,
Right.
you know, and
As
then
long as
you're
you
not
don't
really, it's not a
change
re-review
configuration.
for each time or anything like that, yeah.
if they're good stand-up business people.
I would make a note on that, like no rear review necessary
If no reconfiguration.
if it's the same thing, or something, I don't know. How do people feel about permits?
We'll go a different direction from that. I think the bigger issue is gonna be what we haven't talked about is in the sign, because it's pretty easy to make a tent look like a sign. You can go to Brick Manor and our tent that's, or Titleist could supply a tent for the golf store. So I don't think we wanna totally assume that a tent could not look exactly like the sign of the company.
Yeah, I think we'll get there. Let's just talk about if we think it's something that needs to have a permit or not.
I don't know about that, because if it's an extension of the business, they have like a clearance sale.
What
I
about?
don't want to overregulate them
Yeah.
selling on their property in their business. But if it was something where it was a business owner letting somebody else come in on their property with a tent that's not associated with this business, then I would say yes, then charge a permit fee. But not if it's the business, the property owner themselves.
But what about a lesser permit fee, just so that we do have some oversight and Sean could look at where they're configuring it and putting it within the parking lot? Because I like that control factor.
We do, I will say, we talk often about things that we want to write into the ordinance that are unenforceable or there's no way to track them, and how we don't like to do that. I mean, essentially this would be creating something like that. If there's no paper trail and Sean goes over and says, you have had this up for 3 months, they can say, prove it. Like, what is he gonna do? Like, go around and take photo stamped pictures with the newspaper, like he's holding these tents hostage, like, today's date, and, you know, I mean, that's not in the purview of what Sean can spend his time on. I almost dare say waste his time on. So I understand the paper trail. I'm just pointing out if we put it in here and don't have any paper trail, enforcement of the whole thing is, don't put this in the minutes. Impossible.
Well, there could be a permit, just not a fee.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The permit is really helpful. I mean, I see that with the temporary signs.
Yeah.
People come in, they want 60 days in October or something like that, and then as soon as the snow melts, they want another 60, and it's within a year and all that.
You think the board would be okay with a permit that doesn't have a fee?
It's not a lot of work. I don't know. I don't
Okay,
know.
I'm just
I'm just saying it's not.
playing.
Yeah.
We can ask them.
You think they
Are you
probably?
speaking for the board?
Uh,
Board member White?
Yeah,
For 1/7 of the board.
You think they probably would be supportive of no fee?
I think they would be.
I mean, I agree. that these
Myself,
people are-
I have a hard time charging a business owner more. Okay, you're gonna run an outdoor sales here, whether it's Rob down here or Kmart's or whatever.
How many of these would we get, do you think we get in a year?
I'm trying to think of some of the businesses that
That
have the
run-
layout or even that type of business. I mean, McDonald's isn't gonna have a tent sale, I don't think. I don't think
The only one I can think of is Rob down here that's
Rob,
ever had one.
What about restaurants?
We're gonna do sell all their.
Then it'd be regulated by the health department though, right?
and now that's
'Cause
more
remember
like a
next-
special event. I
Next
would
door,
think.
like, he couldn't have. I know, but what if you wanted to sell beer out on the patio, cause you're,
But that's
They're
right.
already doing
Frank-
that down in the Bayview Inn.
well, he has his like outdoor dining area, but you can't just drink in the parking lot.
No, you have to get like an outdoor liquor license. There's a special something
license.
you have to go through.
But what if Frank wanted to take like 25% of his parking lot, make a giant tent and have Oktoberfest?
Well, you could, I mean, if you don't want that to happen, you could say, no, this does not apply to restaurants or.
Well, why
bars.
not? Like,
Well, you're concerned with it, I'm just
It's-
saying,
you're
I don't
talking
care, it's up to
tent
you.
sales. I don't think Frank's gonna run that, we're gonna run that out there under the tent. All beers are half price.
sometimes things that are on sale are not really on sale, okay?
And I-
Well, I think the guys that visit the establishment pretty much know.
Like, if they wanted to do a Saturday Oktoberfest with a tent at Bayview, but
That's
that would
a
fall under
special-
our special events.
That's a
ordinance.
special event, that's
Yeah.
not a,
But what if for a whole week he wanted to have, you know,
Burger sales, half off.
burgers and beers out under the tent because he knows in August he can get a bunch of drive-by tourists to,
because I think this
I
is a
still think it's
special
special,
event.
you know?
or spe-
he brings in a, you know, cotton candy machine,
Well, then let's
things
just
get
put the-
crazy.
Does he,
Restaurants
want
aren't
to sell cotton
applicable.
candy?
You wouldn't be able to meet the parking, so it's a moot point.
It's just-
So really, we're talking about, really. not
Right.
very good
I just
example.
use it, okay,
They're trying to play devil's
McGee's, I don't know. The resort, I have no idea.
They can do whatever they want at the resort.
Anyway,
I'm trying to see where special events has a
Bravo Zulu, he's got plenty of parking.
plenty of parking.
I think I'm funny. Okay, alright, so let's go back then. We're at the bottom of this permit argument,
The last I heard, permit appropriate fee,
no
no.
fee.
See, I'm in favor of the fee, actually.
I'm fine with a small administrative fee.
I think.
if it's not
your
like-
time's valuable, and if it's gonna be,
I know how much
to
we
be
pay
used,
you.
why would there?
Trey and I were on the hiring committee for Sean, so we find Sean incredibly valuable.
I wanna continue to maintain his salary.
Yeah, we wanna be able to pay you.
I'm gonna have a lot of tent sales.
Okay, so let me back up.
$40 fee, like,
Our special events ordinance is limited to 3 days.
okay,
So a special event, no more than 3 days.
okay.
So no week-long October.
So much for the Oktoberfest.
Yeah. Okay, so fee, small,
Or non-existent.
Or non-existent.
okay.
Of
I will look into this and come up with a draft fee that you will see at the next meeting and see if that's appropriate and we can amend it from there.
We'll see how everyone feels about it in a month. Let's handle the signage
Yeah, I
issue
think
next.
signage is important.
I think you should follow our signage that we have now. Why would it not?
I can see that making sense.
So the title is tent. Let's use this as an example, that's a great example. Minus the whole parking conundrum at that place. Under our current definition of signage, would that tent therefore be signage?
Oh,
Do you want it?
Jeff, we have you
I
here,
haven't
we're
looked
gonna
at that.
demand
We have
work.
two different definitions of signs.
Pick one.
Hey, so I want to, while he's looking for that real quick, I want to go back to the idea
Yeah,
of the
like the
percent of a
banners,
parking
tent
lot.
crowd.
What do we do with like the golf course when it's a shared parking lot?
What golf?
Or, sorry, golf shop.
Oh.
Because if we say they can have 25% of the parking lot, but then they're taking up,
They have to get permission from their other
Well,
share.
that would have to be 25% of their.
Of their share of the parking.
Sure.
and do we just count the number of spaces and divide it by the number of build? By tenants? I mean, is that fair? Like
Jeff
Ron's
would tell
barber
you.
shop, who has one person at a time there, gets the same allotment as Subway at lunch, you know? Fair versus equal.
I don't know how that was approved originally. I mean, I would.
I've looked at it, I
imagine-
don't remember seeing anything that dedicated a certain number of spots to each.
Well, it doesn't matter because their SUP says no outdoor sales. Mwahaha. This is all a hypothetical.
Oh, sure.
Just trying to
So
keep
they
us
come
out of
for
the
the
weeds
amendment.
because Sean promised you guys a short meeting.
No, this is all intentional, isn't it?
Wouldn't their lease restrict the number of parking spaces dedicated to each building? I mean, we don't know that.
We don't know, yeah, and there's nothing there when you like pull in that this is a Subway spot, or this is an Whole City. You know, it's not like,
At lunch,
I don't
they're
get the
gonna call
impression they're
Subway.
entitled to the ones in front of their door.
No.
I mean, is it a case where all tenants would have to
Agree.
agree? Is that the simplest, most appropriate action?
I don't know. I mean, most of the time it's the
Or if it's a shared
landowner.
parking lot, you're not doing a tent sale?
Then you
'Cause
get
I'm
into
trying to
like,
think more
okay, if you
further-
go to the Meyer and they build that out, and then Meyer wants to do a tent sale, is
Would
that
they-
all really shared parking, or? I mean, that whole development is like,
Well, that's the thing, as we start moving to the future,
do you
we
look at
start
like
getting these
landowner,
more
do you look
mixed-use
at,
shared parking
What if we,
establishments.
Right.
what if
Then
we
you're gonna
came
have
up
more issues.
with a minimum parking lot space? And if your minimum parking lot space for a shared business doesn't meet this, you cannot have a tent sale.
what about like, what if Helping Hands?
I wanna say, is this gonna be a serious one?
What if Helping Hands wants to have an outdoor sale?
See, that's where it's going.
Isn't the back of theirs a shared parking lot? I've never been there. They will get a Barney tent. Sure.
Maybe tell us at least.
Okay, so we're stuck on a different issue. I tried to bring the signage thing up, John, but,
I think there's too many variations in parking lots to do it that way. I don't know how
To
we
base it on a
become-
percent?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see how you could do something specific to restriction of access, handicap,
Yeah.
structure, things like that.
well,
Well,
maybe
What
we,
if you do this or this, whichever is least?
we could go back to the, the way this was read, the impede, and then if we have a permit, Sean's looking at it.
There
or
was some
who-
objective review.
Whoever Sean is at that point in time is looking at it. So if the zoning administrator says this is gonna impede traffic, then my question goes back to Jeff of like, how can you enforce it? Can you tell them no?
I mean,
Much
I feel like in a
better.
parking lot, there's a pretty clear circulation pattern in most cases.
Have you
I-
ever tried to drive around the Sam's Club parking lot
Mhm.
on the other side of town? Cause I'll
Not in
tell
like
you
20
that's in
years.
fact not true.
Okay.
They have a flow. It's
Well, and I
called
guess,
gas theory.
back to the idea of a shared parking spot, like what if, yeah, I mean, if someone's putting up a tent, and now you're blocking, you've decreased that parking lot, you've now affected every other business that relies on that parking lot. So if it gets busy, people aren't gonna stop there for lunch, they're not gonna stop there for X, Y, or Z, whatever that other businesses are there for.
Or they're gonna stop to find out what's going on.
Not if there's no parking spots on.
Well, then maybe you do charge a permit fee and then it's determined by the zoning administrator.
Yep.
And a little more objective review to it.
Review it first and then determine the size allowable.
Okay. So then essentially scratch the idea of a threshold
Right,
and then,
because you're gonna have to do it case by case.
yeah.
Discretion.
But do we bring in the other business owners that share that parking lot? Is
Well, I
it
think
not
that's
close?
administrative, like, if you look at it and you're like,
Your discretion.
that's
Because-
gonna take up half that parking lot.
I'm just thinking of phone calls and I'll get,
Jeff has like an idea, I think.
please.
Uh,
You want those?
No, but perhaps this is why the Garfield Township application has property owner and applicant, because
Oh.
for example, the golf, to use that example,
He's
the
not
owner
Murray
of that
owns-
business does
Murray?
not own the
Murray.
building, right? It's not a site condo, it's not a condo,
Mhm.
so,
Tenant.
so he's
Owner's
a
not a
tenant,
tenant.
so the owner of the overall property would have to
That makes sense.
permit too.
Yeah.
And then you could leave it, then it'd be the owner's discretion whether he or she's gonna tell the other
Other
tenants whether they are or not, and if the other tenants complain, say, oh, you can talk to your owner.
Okay.
Okay.
Then you don't have to, then you're not trying to deal with, geez,
You know,
is it gonna, am I gonna offend the subway and the vacuums, is there a vacuum store?
Yes.
Yeah, which I didn't even know that's a thing.
Well,
There
it's
used to
because I
be
told
one in
him.
Ann Arbor and I always thought it was like a mafia front. Like,
Vacuums out inside.
there was nobody ever in there. I was like, how is this place open? I walk by it every day.
All right,
There's an orange on that.
sign.
Okay.
Why don't you do for sign, I'm looking at the ordinance, why don't you just say, you know, one sign on the tent, certain square footage or something?
I think 32 is what we use for a temporary sign, or is it 16?
And that way, you don't have to
It's,
complicate it with the rest of the sign
16.
ordinance and the rest of their
Not to
signage.
exceed the minimum standards
A
of.
temporary sign. Now, they get that sign on the tent, can they still get a temporary sign permit to put another sign by the road
That's-
advertising the tent
I think that's fair.
for a short duration?
Because maybe they want to advertise the sale is coming before the sale gets there. and they want to get their temporary sign that says sale August 1st through 30th, because that's when they'll be there, and that's there for part of the sale, but it gets there like 2 weeks before. That seems fair.
General consensus.
Is anybody opposed to that? Sorry, I shouldn't have more opinions, but. Okay.
That's why we pay the big bucks.
What was that last opinion?
Okay.
What?
What was that last opinion?
The last opinion was that people should be able to have some signs.
That is the end of my considerations I had for tent sales, especially ones that are extensions of an existing business.
Okay.
Do we want to move
Yeah,
on
get in the
to
weeds here.
new, or second party? Would it be a third party? Second party tent sales?
Unrelated business sales, I don't know. Jeff, give us a term.
Transient, non-owners. Transient
Gypsy
owner
sales. Can we call them gypsy sales?
I would suggest you
Carnival
don't.
sale.
Right. Carnival sales.
We're all the same.
Most people don't get my humor.
I mean, I feel
Tracy, look at it right down.
I know, I'm sure he's like, these minutes are gonna be pretty thin.
It's just turned into like a 3-hour after work job.
I feel-
Unrelated business sales.
Yes. I feel like between the special events ordinance that could hire, have these events we talked about earlier, and our extended business sales, we're covering a lot. We're giving a lot of options there. Do we do we want to go out there and add something or add an ordinance in the possible chance that someone wants to sell fireworks on another property, or we just want to say, sorry, you can't do that here? I guess that's my question. Do we want?
I don't know, maybe we can just go with what we have now and then see if there's actually a need for it.
I vote for that.
And then if there is, then develop one.
Yeah. I mean, I know one person has inquired so far,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean we have to amend the ordinance every time someone inquires about something.
That's
not
very
there,
true.
I mean, we have a fireworks store.
Yeah, until right now.
It's always there.
Now we're not
20%.
Why? I don't.
I guess I don't see why it just leave it like it is. I mean, yeah, there was a fireworks tent up here at Kmart's there just before the 4th of July. I don't see it happening all the time.
And if it does, that wouldn't be
If
allowed.
it
We'd
does,
have to
then
take it
it
down.
might be time to revisit this next year at this time.
I think that makes sense.
Is anybody a huge proponent of unrelated business sales in tents in parking lots?
I mean, the need can't be too great.
It's not number 10.
Garfield has a lot more parking lots than we have throughout the township. And they
Yeah,
only
or
allow
pavement.
they only allow these unrelated business signs in 3 of them, and they're thinking about getting rid of it. So again, it makes you question the demand or whether we really need
It's like
to.
at Barlow in 31, they've been putting boats up there, and that looks like junk.
Yeah,
Next to the Happy Hog.
yeah.
You know what we're talking about, right? Just random boats, and then they were all shrink wrapped. Like sitting there, shrink wrapped boats. You don't get out much. You live in the
I don't know what
city.
you're talking
I
about.
don't know what you're talking about.
Right next to the Admiral Station by the senior center.
Oh, yes, I do know, yeah. Oh, I know what you're
Remember the
talking about.
ladies at Barlow? That vacant lot, they just started doing boats there all year this year.
It's always like the coach purses and all that. Fake.
Anyway,
Yeah.
okay, if nobody is a huge proponent for figuring out somewhere to allow this, I say we don't pursue it.
I agree.
Jim?
Yes, don't you already allow it? I think I remember seeing a farmer's market down here on a weekly basis, just by Acme Creek there behind the one store. And how does that get handled?
Behind the one store.
So,
Special
By
use?
Stainless Cabinet Company.
the Hoxie place, is it?
Hasn't
I
been
didn't
much
even-
in-
Right behind it was actually behind the,
Helping Hands?
Yes.
yeah.
Don't call it
That's what
They're
that's what I
very
was trying to
sensitive
think.
to that.
I'd like to encourage farmers markets. I don't know how they fit into something like this.
So farmers markets on ag property have their own provisions, and they're allowed to sell their goods.
Mhm.
They have a lot more flexibility in selling products as
This
farm
was like,
stand.
this is like, down in Traverse City.
Like a farmers market, like a
Yeah.
Hardy.
That's what they had.
Don't we have
It only
something
lasted
for,
about 2 years.
Yeah, and that was
2-3
discussed at, I remember there being
Yeah.
some discussion by someone at some point about it.
Well, that would be,
I can't
Because it was-
remember.
I thought they had to have a special use permit, because I remember it.
wasn't the owner of the property putting this on?
No,
Yeah, well,
no.
kind of.
but I mean, they had vendors in.
He had,
Yeah.
he had
Yeah.
vendors in there that came in. I know
I
it
don't know that
didn't
we
pan
have
out
anything.
because
Did we?
basically you
Discuss
had
it for
to
farm market.
unload your truck over here and haul it up over here to 31. There's such a long walk and everything for everybody.
Didn't we talk about when we were doing the special events ordinance, like, reoccurring things? I thought it ended up somewhere in here, but I don't see it. No more frequently than one time in every 60-day period. Okay, so we basically
I
said
think the reoccurrence did go.
it didn't, right? Okay. Jim, that's a whole different issue that, I don't think we have any answer to as
No.
to how that would fit in.
Not right now. So I have a hard time really understanding what it was that was there too.
Just call it a farmer's market.
Farmers market.
It was a farmer's
It was a farmer's
But there's
market.
about 6 to 10 vendors roughly.
If it was only one day
Yeah.
and it was in a
One
test,
day
On a
per
Saturday
week.
morning.
if it was one day a week, there's only, there's not 52, there's 52 weeks, and if you can have it for 30 days,
You're not gonna have a winner.
you're not gonna have it in the winter, so you could do, this, oh, but that's not an extension of that business, I don't know.
It was like a 6-week thing.
A special use permit.
That's what
I would feel
One
like,
day.
so we probably didn't have our special event ordinance at
No,
the time.
No.
I know we didn't.
Does it sound like what is being described would fall under the special event?
No.
No.
It wouldn't, okay.
Well, I mean, no, because we specifically say that it can't be something that,
Yeah, so I guess my point is our special event would prohibit that from operating. Because it can't it can't reoccur more frequently than once every 60 days.
no, that's individual garage sales.
And recur no more frequently than one time in 60 days.
Well, can't we write something in for farmer's market since it's such a different?
Well, the board would have to adopt it, because the special events ordinance is police
Police
power.
Once a week?
I don't
Um,
mean into the special events,
I-
but into the tents that are.
Farmers markets.
I'm looking at the old minutes.
Okay, I think we should leave it at that as a
We'll
good
make
question.
a
You-
note of the question
Yeah.
that you've raised,
'cause we didn't
and
consider
we'll
it.
bring it up at the next meeting under new-ish business. Don't have an answer. What?
Well, I just found in June 23rd, 2008, limited public comment. Vermetten, who may have been PC chair then, noted that there was a farmer's market that took place this weekend at the Stained Glass Cabinet Company property.
That's
Yeah,
it?
that would have been.
He feels that the event was precisely what was envisioned when it was reviewed by the township for permit approval, so
They must
Okay.
have something.
like post or pre, it was 2000.
That's that long ago?
Anyway, I'll track it down and see if I can find it
Could be a
from that history of what was done then.
Sean, I don't know if I'm asking this question of you or to Carly, but under the transient tent sale, what issues would we run into if we tried to make it either included under or adapted to the special event permit?
Well, I mean, that was one thing I possibly suggested when we were thinking about addressing tent sales as a police power ordinance. We already have the special event one. Could that be modified to include them?
My thinking would be not that. My thinking would be that the ordinance would cover the businesses that are having a sales extension of their business. But this would be a limiting, a restrictor, if you will, for the transient, that they wouldn't get the same benefit of 30 running days, for example.
Be a shorter duration?
Or is it better fit under a special use permit?
Wait, special use,
Or special events permits?
special events.
Okay.
Okay, I got confused at the, I thought I followed you until the end. So your question is,
What
for
difficulties?
transient businesses,
Yeah.
what difficulties are there of them somehow being umbrella under the special events ordinance?
Yeah.
Uh,
We're trying to adapt the ordinance, the special events, to
Mhm.
accommodate that. And I think that's gotta go back to the board now, right?
They would have to,
yeah, any of
we
this
could make
is gonna have to go to
suggestions
the
to
board.
them.
I know that.
Yeah, but they would have the final approval on that.
But are you asking for issues as far as how the ordinance reads right now and how those transient businesses would fit in?
I guess the complications of it. I don't think a transient business having a tent sale necessarily, I don't think we're required to give them the same advantages of a business that is doing it as an extension of their own. And a business of their own where we're looking at 30 days, I don't know, maybe, do we look at some lesser time period for a transient?
Mhm. Or just basically say, that's not allowed,
Or, yeah.
which
right,
is
that's
pretty
the
much what
other-
we're doing right now.
Correct.
So this is, we're gonna get into the conversation about food trucks, and it's the same argument that people make for food trucks, is if you don't have to establish a brick and mortar building, you're not paying taxes. So why are we giving you the advantage of operating a business in our township? This is just an argument that's made, I'm not saying what my opinion is. But that's the big argument, is these business owners went through special use
So
or
it's
site
still
plan
referring
approval
to garage
to own
sale,
and
not
operate
special
a
events
business in
permit.
this community, and we're saying you can just come up and set
No,
your tent
it's-
here and sell out of it
There
for the
is,
2 peak
my brain
weeks of
starts
the
really
year
good.
and then leave without contributing to our township at all. That's the big argument that comes up with food trucks, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, don't,
I was paralleling the argument about
Yeah.
not paying
I see
taxes
what you're saying.
to transient businesses. We have vacant, if you wanna set up a shop, we have vacant commercial space, go get some.
Okay, are we telling transient businesses? No.
If we don't either
Yeah,
incorporate them in,
Because we should do something, either say no, or make some type of a fee, because
Okay,
I'm
so,
gonna say, Rob down here, he wants to have a tent sale, he's gotta come down here, we make him pay a fee.
right,
I, coming into town, I wanna set up a tent and sell fireworks out of it out here at Myers. Oh yeah, boom, set your tent up.
right, which I think what
And I
we were,
don't pay nothing,
I think what we were
I
just
think
saying
I'd
though,
do
is that we're saying essentially they're not allowed.
these transient sales.
Unless we
Yes.
wrote them in somewhere, currently, they're not allowed. Kmart
Something should
shouldn't
be
have a
put out.
fireworks store in their parking lot.
By transient, I guess now we're talking.
Myers shouldn't be selling ponies out of the tent in the front.
Fall under this, to be
Yeah,
regulated by this through
I know.
modification.
Yes.
You're gonna have to look
Would
somewhere else
modify
to
that
buy
or
your
do a
next
separate
pony.
one, yeah.
Okay.
Very similar one, absolutely.
What's up?
Oh, I was just asking Jeff if it'd be possible, because I think you mentioned this, John, of modifying our existing special events ordinance to include in the definitions these transient businesses.
I don't think it's in the intent of the ordinance though.
Okay, and that's fine.
Well, everyone can have an opinion, I'm just saying like,
And it may,
this is
With the
not,
special events.
with the special events, and it may not be beneficial to them, because the ordinance limits it to 3 days, to come and rent a tent, set it up and all that for 3 days. But
And it
that's for
also
them to decide the
requires-
cost-benefit analysis, not for us to make it beneficial
And that was my
for them.
point, there's a difference between saying, no, you can't do it,
yeah,
which frankly I'm in favor of, but that's not what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Or make it so prohibitive to 3 days that you wouldn't want to do it anyway.
I mean, because right now we have, flea markets covered under the special event ordinance. That's not that different than some of these maybe transient businesses,
for,
transient sales.
yeah. from a legal standpoint, is there any reason why we can't say, no, we don't want these transient businesses setting up shop? I mean, by not zoning, we're not doing some kind of exclusionary, oh, the poor fireworks tents, like,
No, I don't think, I think you're okay. By saying you don't allow, or being silent on a transient type
yeah,
tent sale, for lack of a better word, you're not risking an exclusionary zoning or a constitutional challenge, I do not believe. I
and,
think it would be a hard sell to say that you're prohibiting me from selling these goods, which is really what it would come down to. We're just saying you have to sell them out of a building.
Right.
Sorry, you can't sell them out of a tent.
right, so, and then
It's
I
not
would
use.
say like, the, you know, the flea market thing, to me, a flea market and a fireworks tent are two drastically different things. One is like a commercial enterprise, one is like a bunch of junk on, you know, 4x8 tables that. It's, yeah, it's like an amalgamation of garage sales. So, I don't think that currently the special events ordinance that falls under it, and I think that we use this term sometimes, like the spirit of the ordinance, of the special events ordinance, was to allow these like one-off, like
Sales.
community more type, like sporting events, art things, car shows. Like those are not commercial enterprises per se, like they might make money, like the one down at Culver's raises money for something, but it's more of like so we're not saying nobody can ever have fun.
Yeah, it seems that this adds some sort of value to the community through the event, rather than just someone making money off something.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, does anybody else have a different interpretation of it? But the special events ordinance was brought about by the whole Lyle Lovett thing. And that was all to make sure that something like that could happen, but be regulated.
Yeah.
So as of now, unless we either change the special events ordinance or write a separate one, we're basically saying no tent sales. Yeah. Which is, I think, from polling everybody, seems like a general consensus that we don't want to pursue writing what I would say is a separate ordinance. I don't think it should just be tacked onto the special events ordinance. But we're saying we don't want to encourage or allow shops setting up in a parking lot that somebody will lease to them. Plus, they designated that as parking space, and
Yeah.
it's slippery slope.
Couldn't you just add the agricultural food sales thing? Couldn't you just throw that in with this
With the special
associated?
events?
No, with what we were doing earlier with the associated tent sales that are associated with the business. Couldn't you say, this is for this, but by the way, we're gonna throw this in here too, that if you're gonna have a farmer's market, that the same rules that apply to your farmer's market is this.
I think that's possible. Right now, we're taking the route of putting it under supplementary regulations, which I think as we start adding more things to it, now you're gonna require more review, or you should maybe have more review. If you just keep it a simple extension of what's
Yeah.
already there, it's easier on those business owners, it's probably easier on the township.
The other caution with that is with the farmer's market, you end up with a lot of third party or outside vendors, which I've been to some that have no basis in agriculture. They're just junk sales disguising themselves as farmers markets. So I would encourage us to look at that as a separate
Yeah, but they heard fleas, so.
issue. You can get a flea circus to let your dog play with. I would encourage that we look at that separately and not try to incorporate it as an extension of a business, because we're being very clear that these Barney tents are just going to be an extension of the businesses.
And I wanna look into the zoning ordinance too, see what's already there about farmers markets.
Okay, I don't,
Could park property be used?
go next.
Well, I can't remember, and I wasn't actually council, like the regular attendee at that time, but in 2008, in the May minutes, the planning commission approved an amendment to the SUP for the stained glass cabinet company to allow for an outdoor farmers crafters market. And then the board approved it in June, so you may be able to trace some of that back that way.
I don't know where that would fall under.
I don't know either, and it may have been that the ordinance has been changed since then,
Yeah.
too. I mean, it has gone through the
Oh, yeah.
rewrite.
Go through an SUP on that?
It was an SUP amendment, it was an amendment to the existing stained glass company SUP. But Sean can look in the file and see what's in there too and how it went.
I remember when it went through, but
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly how.
Everyone was excited about it though, clearly, based on my glance at the
And-
minutes.
This will come up when we talk about food trucks. The food trucks and something like farmers market being allowed on public or parkland property and where that falls. Okay, so I think that we've wrapped up the discussions pretty thoroughly on tent sales, and Sean has direction, and we're only moving forward the ones that are extensions for current businesses. We're not moving forward at this time or allowing ones that are not an extension of a business, but rather a third party. And so now we're gonna move on to the food truck situation, and Sean got us going on that one.
All right, so again, the board, the concerns I had there were, as Carly mentioned, are we gonna let them operate on public property? Specifically, it was the parks. Are we gonna let a food truck park in the park and operate there? Then the argument came up, or the consideration that comes up whenever someone mentions food trucks, and is our food trucks getting a benefit over our brick and mortar stores who aren't paying property taxes and things like that? It's a common argument. I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with it. It's a completely different experience. I don't think anyone's sitting there considering, do I grab dinner today at Aerie or the taco truck? You know, it's more like, I'm running late. Do I pop into Tom's and grab something real quick, or the taco truck, or the food truck for that matter? I think they add variety to different cuisines. And they also, I've lived in,
Show them it with their phones off. God.
I don't know, I've lived in communities that have had food trucks, they've been popular, and I think they're a great dining option for some people. I had a lot of friends who had 3 kids under the age of 5, and going out to a restaurant just wasn't going to happen, but the food trucks were a great option for them. I think some of the benefits of food trucks, people interested in maybe getting into the dining scene, it's less overhead to invest in a food truck sometimes than to a full-on restaurant. And where I've lived before, I've seen food trucks become brick and mortar restaurants, and I've seen brick and mortar restaurants open up food trucks as well, in addition to their restaurant, just because there's interest in it. So all that, just to say that I don't know that the argument that a food truck has a benefit over all the other ones is very solid. So there we are. So now the question is, police power zoning ordinance. I think that this should be a police power ordinance. I don't think this should be in our zoning ordinance. Our only local trailblazer in this so far has been Traverse City. So I've included their police power ordinance for mobile food vendors, as they call it. And I think if we want to go down this route, it might be a good place to start. One of the big differences is that we don't have public parking lots. So a lot of theirs talks about which public lots you can be in and things like that.
What about parks?
That's
Jeff.
Just as the parks go, I can't say for certain, but it's quite possible that the trust fund purchased parks would not allow food trucks. I don't want to say for certain, and I can look into it, but there's not really any parking in any of those really yet anyway.
That would be.
Unless the Bayside Park unless that was originally purchased with trust fund money, I don't know.
it wasn't.
It's Bayside, yeah. We have to decide if we're combining those and making it all applicable to the trust fund, or if we're keeping them separate and they'll have 2 different land uses.
Yeah. But there may be a problem with the trust fund if you were allowing a commercial food truck to operate there. Although I think they do allow some vendor type operations as long as it's tied to the public recreational use. Like you can have
Yeah, because the Hoxie House could have been a
yeah,
food stand.
yeah. But if you had
What's that?
if you had 4 food trucks that are in the parking lot that are clearly not catering to the recreational use, that are just really basically a place for
People to pull in.
and get food and take off, then you might be. And they do. I mean, again, I don't know for certain, but just something to keep in mind that you may be able to just say, sorry, you can't have them anywhere in these areas without having any discussion.
That would you'd consider the Bayside part, probably up to, the one at Yuba. And what about Sailor Park?
At least the recent round of purchases. I don't know, Sailor Park was
reaches
donated.
Up there quite a long ways.
Sailor Park was donated.
Mm-hmm.
One thing you want to look at is the D grant to see if there's any
I
rotation
imagine at that
restrictions.
point in time, we didn't have anything.
It may just say donated for a park. The trust fund, the new purchases down here, and I don't know what else is. Well, Maple Bay isn't yours though.
Yeah, Maple Bay's
That's the
county,
county.
isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know, it just have to be a look at each one of those specifically to say whether it could or couldn't happen. You want to get crosswise with that.
Because I'm not gonna say anybody's gonna go up to,
Yeah, I know.
to Yuba.
Yeah.
But up to Sailor Park with the new boat ramp coming in,
Yeah.
I could see,
Someone selling hot dogs
The-
to the fishermen that don't catch any fish.
yeah. Mrs.
Fish
Paul's.
tacos.
Or, you know,
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm gonna say is something like that. And I know from listening to the board the other night, the consensus was,
No.
no,
No
I
food
think-
trucks in parks.
no food trucks in the park.
Okay, I think,
And I
It's
think that's
easy
an
then.
easy way to start, because then
Yeah.
you're not worrying about, okay, like how many food trucks, who
Where
gets
can they
first
be?
dibs on that, yeah.
And then if I'm let 3 and I'm number 4, why? You know?
Yeah, I think that's very,
So then where does that leave food trucks?
well,
other
so,
than
that's private parking lots.
private parking
Because
lots.
we don't have city lots or street parking.
Mhm.
Okay,
That's the private lots, I mean,
Mhm.
you could have, there's private lots across the street from the park. You got also, I'm trying to think,
But at that, that's a private parking lot,
Yeah.
and that would be, from the consensus of what the board was,
that's fine.
if that guy wants to let you have them in there,
I know, but we're saying you can't have a third party sell out of a tent, but you can let them sell out of a truck? Well, I'll just put wheels on my tent then.
I'd like to see that go down the road.
Let's do it.
Work it with Barney.
I hope it's not a Barney tent.
Challenge accepted. But you know what I'm
But,
saying, like,
no, I see what you're
we should
saying.
be consistent, and if we're saying, well, okay, I'm gonna stop with
That-
opinions.
We
I
have a
don't know
question.
why I'm
I-
so opinionated.
No,
question.
I see exactly what you're saying.
That's valid.
But I
But
think like, what about
Just
like Bravo Zulu, where they have a
They're-
food truck?
Wings and things.
Did we authorize that?
Nope.
No?
Yeah, they went through something.
They talked
Were
to
they like the
Nikki.
first
Nikki
special?
just probably said it's all good.
we.
I don't know anything about it, frankly.
Just a second.
I'm sorry, what was that?
We never said an ordinance, and
Exactly. We never said anything, so.
we never,
Our
so
silence, they
basically,
just did it.
it's sort of like, I'm gonna say it, the pot house over here, they came in. If
Because we didn't zone for
we
it.
hadn't zoned it.
Yeah.
We had inquiries?
Regarding parking in and around the parks, now I know when I go down to Sailor Bay, I just park along the street and nobody says anything. Is that gonna change? Like
Yes.
somebody, that will change, okay.
With the
So,
boat.
so like somebody with a food truck couldn't just park along the street there anymore? Okay.
No, and if they were, I mean, it's not legal parking. Just because you do it and no one yells at you doesn't mean it's legal.
Correct, but it's
So-
been done forever. I mean, it's
I know.
like foreign, I mean, it's
I
like,
know, but like if you get, you know, officer job to like go over there, it's not legal to be parked there. So if we needed to enforce that, we could.
Used to be the guy that watched the park, he used to come around and give you a ticket. I don't know if there's ever.
Any validity
People are
to
showing
it?
up with like.
Anything
Drop
to it.
$20 off in my mailbox. Okay, so, so we're specifically now, we've discussed it to the point where we're looking at food trucks in parking lots of private entities. Bravo Zulu is just, we'll call it grandfathered, even though Jeff hates that word, I think. But, let's not look at that,
You
let's
couldn't
look
get
at
around.
future food truck scenarios.
Well, let me say this. If you do a police power ordinance for food trucks, I would suggest that anyone who's operating today would be subject to the ordinance too and should be licensed under the same ordinance, whether you've been operating or not.
Okay,
Police power, there is no such thing as a grandfathering for a
Okay.
police power ordinance.
good.
Must be doing this right
Are they? Okay. So that clears that up.
So they're gonna have to go get registered and all that stuff?
Well, if we decide to make them be registered, then yes.
So like in Traverse, they have to have a permit with the city. And they have a whole list of 12 requirements. You know, they have to provide the waste receptacles. I mean, they even talk about the signage, how big, you know, a sandwich board sign can't be further than 5 feet from the truck, can't block the sidewalk. You know, no loud music, no flashing lights or blinking lights. Any lights over 60 watts have to have shielding to point them down. Again, comply with all applicable federal, state, and county regulations. You can have, okay, the one portable sign. They even give times that they can operate in different zoning districts. I think that's good to have in there if you want to do something like that. Can't be left unattended for more than 2 hours. If it's not in operation, it shall be removed between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. That's something different from how Bravo Zulu's operated, so again, it's a shorter duration. Not represent the granting of a permit under this chapter as an endorsement by the city, and then shall not utilize any electricity or power or water or sewer without written authorization from that property owner where they're parked.
What kind of inquiries have we gotten?
Someone wanting to know about food trucks, I know specifically at the fireworks across the street from the park.
Oh, at the fireworks
So we're gonna have
store?
small children running across 31 to get ice cream cones?
And fireworks.
Fantastic. Ice cream cones and fireworks.
Wood tunnel.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if you had the chance to read through theirs. I thought it was pretty good. Some of it, again, doesn't apply because we don't have city-owned lots or street parking like you said. They do require a fee.
I guess I feel like if we're not gonna allow.
Okay, you said what about fee? And it's also put on the property owner that they get the ticket, I believe, not so that therefore they have skin in the game to make sure that they're operating by all the requirements as well.
They're only allowed certain locations too.
What's that?
They're only allowed certain locations within the city.
Yeah.
They've specified exactly the places.
I guess I just feel like if we're not allowing third parties to put up tents, and we don't think that we'll be able to put them within the parks, and it doesn't sound like the board even would support that, there's not much other place to put them, and I feel like
It's private property.
it's only private property, but then that goes back to if we're not gonna allow the tents to have, or the tents to be third-party operators, why would we allow food trucks when we're such a small community?
Well, right now, we're allowing food trucks because there's one operating next door.
Well, that's true, but we'll just count them as the test pilot series.
I don't know. People want food, but they don't
They don't want fireworks?
fireworks. I don't know.
They can just drive down the street and get
You can just drive down.
I don't
the
have a
street.
good argument for you on that.
Well, and I mean, like at Bravo Zulu, I support it, but I just don't see other areas in the township. I would rather give them a special use permit to have it, you know what I mean, than allow food trucks just everywhere.
But I mean, if I'm gonna play devil's advocate, they have a restaurant operating without having to have any,
Restaurant?
well, I mean, the food truck
What it represents.
is essentially functioning as their restaurant,
True.
pretty much without any oversight or, you know.
Health department.
Well, the health department
Well, they have to
regulates
meet all
all
those
food vendors.
Yeah.
Does it close down at night?
I don't know.
I need more information on this Bravo Zulu food truck, if you don't mind.
Go check that.
Just walk next door.
They have,
Well, right now, it's not,
It's pretty cold
it's
out.
not operating right now because of the cold.
no, he's operating.
Food, oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, 'cause he came in the
We
other
know
day, he was
who
getting ready
drinks beer,
to,
Bravo Zulu.
I guarantee he's operating.
talking about shutting it down, because he was afraid things were gonna start freezing. I know that's why Little Fleet doesn't keep theirs
Yeah,
through the winter.
they tried that the
in-
first winter and like
Yeah.
everybody's trucks froze.
Yep,
But it's been warm, so he's been operating.
yeah.
But nobody eats outside, they all take it
Yeah.
Well, that's,
into the restaurant, I mean bar.
Yeah.
Who wants food trucks? Did you raise your hand? Oh, I got like a half a hand raised.
I sort of do,
You sort of do.
in selected areas.
So one's,
John's a no. Doug?
well, so long as they don't look like a tent.
Have you seen
But-
wings and things?
Yeah, but, you know, I see what you're saying though too. If we're gonna, where are they gonna park that food truck? It's gonna be on private property. And it's, for no better way to say it, it's a transfer. And I'm not gonna let the guy with the tent come in and sell anything, and he's gonna be there a certain amount of time. The guy with the food truck, he's coming in there every day, or, well, sales aren't going good, so I'm gonna go down the road someplace else.
Right, and I think we allow mobile food vendors
well, they
for
would
their
have
special
to then
events.
reapply, I think their permit allows them at a specific site and their fee,
Okay,
or we
Is
can
that
make
what-
it that way.
Is that how you're gonna make it?
Can, at this point, it
And
doesn't exist.
And then I've got, the other question is, you got the good humor man that drives around and sells the ice cream.
Doesn't stop for kids, makes me question.
Do you guys have
childhood
one?
obesity is
Oh, they've
rampant.
been
You know,
doing that
It doesn't
I
make them
couldn't
cross
believe it, but they're
131.
driving down my road.
I've been here since I moved to Acme,
Really?
every summer.
Hopefully not
Do they
today.
stop?
Not today, but I see them in the summer, and I can't,
Yeah,
that's, there's
Right
8
out there waiting.
houses on this road, you're coming down for this.
Um,
There's nothing they can do if they
and Doug-
are on the right of way, county and then other road right of ways, so.
Can-
yeah, they're not parked,
Just like, you know.
they're not like setting up shop. Yeah, what are you gonna do, send out a
I don't know
cop
how
to,
you'd
like,
stop them.
it's like Pac-Man. Like, like you would just have to follow them around. Yeah.
But back to the food trucks, am I against them? I can't say that I am, but I can see where the transient guy with the tent is gonna be like you, gonna throw wheels under it to say, I'm gonna drive you.
Pulls up his tent on a flatbed.
Right, I mean, like, food is different than, you know, fireworks or,
Transient tent sale, no.
I keep wanting to say shoes, I don't know, or Sam toys, I don't know, what are you gonna be selling?
Nice.
Comfort.
Knives, guns, oh, don't they set up tents and sell guns out of them? I mean,
No. Tools.
tools, anyway. Yeah, I mean, a mobile food vendor ideally is only selling food, not knives.
Right. and
We
there's-
don't even
and
use
there's-
that
Not a
deal, we
mobile
can
knife
say
vendor is
only
only
food
selling
at
knives.
this point.
But like, there's like a lot less likelihood of people loitering around food trucks. I mean, you go there, you get something to eat, you go. I mean, you don't,
Have you ever been to Little Fleet?
Well, so here's one thing, we could say per parcel, so you don't have that accumulation of a bunch on one property, if there's concerns about that. As far as specific areas, I know, we keep thinking just down here by the bay, but the B4 might be a nice area that could benefit from food trucks, where you have people working, short lunch breaks, food truck comes to them. I know like Brett Studios, food trucks go out there, so there's so many people and stuff south airport, like along Cass.
Yes.
And so it's,
Okay, I would welcome that. I could see that.
you know, and we just keep thinking of them right here,
Right.
but there's other ways that this could be applied as well.
I don't know, I sort of keep thinking them right there where they already
We'll
are.
get more information about weighing some things. Trey, do you have any thoughts on where we should head with this mobile food vending?
Well, I think I don't know, I don't know if it's a police power ordinance or a permit-based ordinance, I think, and if it's on private property,
Police power.
police power, and on private property, I think there seems to be, well, you know, there's been at least one niche, and there's been other requests, I think, you said, right? Another request for a food truck, so,
Yeah.
I mean, there's interest.
Okay.
I mean, you can limit it to, areas zoned commercial, the red properties on the map, and then B4. And if that's it, those are the only ones they could be.
Marcy?
I'm not opposed to all the food trucks, I just, other than seeing it at some of the places in the B4 and other areas, I don't see a huge drive for in our area. We just aren't set up that way.
So here's my contribution to this conversation, because we've had this conversation before, is we decided when Traverse City was going through all this, and Steve or Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, we decided that it was like big city problems and we weren't a big city, so it really wasn't a problem. Now, did we do the right thing by being silent on it? I would say I don't know, because here we are with, the thing you can't control. But that's basically all I have to say about it. Is that we went around this once before and did nothing. I feel like we need to do something, even if to regulate to say what is not allowed.
Yes,
But, like have Sean do a draft for us, take out all the things from Traverse
Traverse, it
City
doesn't
and
apply.
do a draft for us to look at, because I think we should at least look at it, because I'm not opposed to them, but I don't think there's gonna be a big drive for it.
Yeah.
We might have something over here, or something, I don't know.
And I think we should clearly outline like where they're not allowed. We should say they're not allowed in parks or along roadsides or at,
feet of brick and mortar restaurants.
tart trailheads, stuff like that. Because I could see someone going over to the tart trailhead by the railroad tracks there and parking a food truck and selling French fries to people getting on their bikes. I don't know. Smoothies, power bars. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying?
But I think by saying like specific area, like you said, going back to like the commercial, just areas zoned commercial, that right there eliminates the parks, the trailheads, the roads.
What
Is
if
it
you're
easier to say this is only where you can be, or to try to come up with the whole list and think of every
But
place
I
that
think
you
like
can?
what if you're Karen Flint and you're the horse shows and a mobile food vendor wants to come set up for the day and she's okay with it, can they apply for a mobile food vendor permit to go out to the ag district and set up shop?
If we
What
had
if-
a plea,
What if you were having a party at the RV resort because they have like some annual fun party and they want to bring in a food truck?
What if we're
What-
having
what
furniture
did they do?
construction?
I'm just
That means
making up
camping.
examples. What if the Hops Farm has a,
You mentioned that. Sean, what did they do here about 2-3 months ago? Up to the Hops place they invited some people up there. And that's what they brought in, was rolling harvest food vendor.
I was none the wiser. I didn't know.
You were invited up.
That's right. I'm not. I'm in the inner ag circle.
But, no, you were, I went as a township rep.
Yeah, I remember hearing something was going on up there. Like
Yeah, they didn't invite the rest of the farming community up there.
Mhm.
But they did have rolling harvest up there,
Roaming harvest.
roaming harvest or whatever.
So maybe
best
keep it
Korean beef tacos? So good.
to just private property, give more flexibility for events like that, and then list all the uses, the places, parks.
Places it can't be.
But
Yeah.
then a lot
Why
of,
not just
make sure like some of it is gonna be covered under the special events ordinance too.
Well, and what if we have a place that prohibits outside sales? A food truck then?
I think no food truck. Oh, well, I think like at some level, we need to be consistent about something. No. Sean's trying to keep himself in a really good job. Let's make this super confusing. I would say just be consistent, and see how it fits in with the special events ordinance.
I like Steve's suggestion, I'll draft something, it's something tangible for our township that we can look at the next meeting
Yeah.
and then make tweaks from there.
And I just cut out like a lot of the fat from the Traverse City one. It seems to be working for them.
And they
And
went
if-
through
yeah,
quite a bit.
Probably not gonna have people lined up outside to set up mobile food vending units.
You know, I know that some of the restaurants, they don't like them, but like, I went down to Little Fleets specifically for the food truck, and I ended up going into the pizza place across the street on the Boardman.
Mhm.
So it draws you in, but you don't necessarily go to them. I ended up going to a brick and mortar shop.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. What do we get to talk about next? Now we're doing administrative actions. The first thing we're gonna look at the township board meeting minutes of 12/1/15. If you've read through those, would anybody like to move that we receive and file them?
I make a motion that we receive and file the minutes from this township board meeting of 12/1/15.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a support, any discussion?
Support by
Steve.
Steve.
I never remember how to put the accent on your name. Faringa?
Yep.
Faringa.
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 People here see Faringa.
What I see.
Okay, all in favor of receiving and filing those board minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Next, the special meeting minutes of 12:07.
I would make a motion that we accept to receive and file the township board special meeting minutes from 12/7/15.
Second for Shet. Okay, any discussion on the receive and file those board meeting minutes? Okay, all in favor to receive and file the township board special meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Then next is receive and file the Parks and Trails Committee minutes from 11/20.
Make a motion to receive and file Parks and Trail Committee minutes 11/20/15.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second? White. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of receiving and filing the Parks and Trails Committee minutes of 11/20/15, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. And then we're looking to approve the draft commission minutes of 12/14/15. Does anybody have anything on those? I have one question. Something that I said that I don't remember. Or actually, I don't understand. I know. Thanks, Doug. Was that you, Doug, or John? John. All right.
Would I misinterpret these minutes?
No, it's not, it's just, I'm having a blank moment. Where are our minutes?
To the very end.
Okay, I said,
Page?
page next to the last. We were talking about the PDRs and the PUDs. It says, Wenslaw wanted to note that Sheffer Farms is not what we are looking for.
You said that.
What was Sheffer Farms?
I don't know, one of the PUDs
That's
that's.
the one off of Zimmerman Road. In the
Oh,
PUD.
I couldn't remember what it was, and
It's the one you didn't like, it was
When
too
you did, you
intense.
specifically said you didn't like that.
Yeah.
No, that's true. Okay.
So I ignored it.
It's not what our PUD or PD ordinance would be going for, because that's a very high density, and like that's the one with the open space, that's just a linear little blob around the outside. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to clarify that. Does anybody else have anything on the commission minute? If not, I would look for a motion to approve.
Second.
Was that Faringa and White? Okay. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of approval of the draft planning commission minutes of 12/14/15, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Sean, zoning administrator, oh, wait, I'm gonna open it for public comment at 9:04. Okay, I'm gonna close it at 9:05. Sean?
Okay, since our last meeting, we've had one land use permit for a carport and 0 sign permits, so things have kind of slowed down in that regard. The Township Board did approve Amendment 36, the medical marijuana dispensaries and cultivation operations in the B4 district, last week at their January 5th meeting. Zoning ordinance update, currently we are ahead of schedule, even if we push the PD back a month from what was proposed on that timeline that John provided. We're going to begin looking at Article 8, site plan review, Article 9, special uses. Next week, Jeff, John, and I are meeting to start that process. And hopefully we'll have something to present to you in draft form at the next PC meeting. And I was just kind of going through and started cataloging textual errors, conflicting definitions, vague areas. If you guys are reading through the zoning ordinance at any point, catch anything, alert me with it. Yeah, it's a good nighttime read. No
While you're sleeping.
Yeah. I had put in here, no site plan reviews or special use permit applications have been submitted at this time. On Thursday, Bravo Zulu had someone come in with updated plans to a kitchen that they're gonna want to install inside. This process is moving very slow with them. Their intent is the guy who's running the food truck would run the kitchen. The food truck would not be there anymore.
Just putting the food truck in the kitchen.
Just
park it
they
in the
could
back
be.
room.
Their plan was so vague, it was hard to tell what it was.
You're just driving it in.
And then just
Yeah,
to
they have doors big enough for that.
yeah, I mean, it used to be a car dealership.
Yeah.
So, just to put it on your radar, the old Dollar General, and there is a vacant parcel next to it. It's at the corner of Cresthaven. Developer has met with a use they would like to put in there. I would call it a truck stop. They would not call it that, but you can put lipstick on a pig. And so I just want you to know that that's coming across the street from a new park property that $4 million was paid for, and just kind of think about that between now and.
Sean's trying to find out if we have any initial thoughts about a truck stop going in at the corner of 31 and Cresthaven.
I personally, it would require, in that district, it would require a special use permit. Some people think a special use permit means you just fill out for a special use permit, but there's a lot of review and.
That's one where an environmental impact assessment might be required. And a traffic study. And maybe a market study.
All of them. No and or.
Right over here, like just past the antiques by the, where you go up to those houses on the ridge there. The Dollar General building, and then he owns that vacant lot.
Eastwood Custom.
Yeah, it's Klaus.
There's swamp there,
No,
isn't there?
Anthony,
Yeah.
a guy downstate does Anthony does.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yes.
there's swamp on the
Yeah, there's
backside.
wetland right on, you have wetland bay truck stop.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, is
Yep.
what,
So Sean's
Very
trying to
important.
take a temperature of the planning commission because he's maybe communicated the lack of interest the township might have in that, but it's maybe not resonating.
I've had a discussion daily about this, so.
So if anybody feels strongly that it should or shouldn't be considered or wouldn't fit well or would,
I don't think it fit well. Just
There we
the way-
go.
yeah.
Well, here's one thing, our form-based code says that the building needs to occupy 65% of the street frontage, which would mean this truck stop building would have to be about 265 feet long, just to throw that out to begin with. It may not, when you look in the zoning ordinance for the commercial district and you see those pictures, you do not see a truck stop as what is intended for that district, let alone some of the MDOT concerns or DEQ concerns.
and that's some
And
of the
citizen
highest
concerns.
density
Yes.
area, that's some of the highest density
Mixed
zoned
use, yeah.
land in our township. And they wanna put a truck stop in.
I don't think that's very consistent.
On a
with our-
curve on 31
No.
in a 45.
No.
I think it would create a
He's up to something else.
problem, and actually a safety problem for people
Exactly
getting
what I
in
was
and out of the
thinking.
park.
Who's up to something
No,
else?
well, I'll tell you
Are they
this.
supposed to put in a
No,
truck
the
stop?
developer they own a number of these in northern Wisconsin and western UP where zone communities are not as common. I was introduced with, he introduced himself and said, I'm not dealing with any planning commissions, PDs, DEQs, or crazy ladies upset about blocking their view shed. So, I want to say, welcome to Acme. And that's literally how he introduced himself to me, before he said his name or what he wanted to do.
Oh,
Yeah.
my.
And then Sean was just ready to work with the guy.
Well, and he kept
Right
calling me
Come on
wet,
in.
which I had to have someone explain to me what that meant.
He called you wet?
Again and again, yeah. I guess it means like you're a new puppy. You're wet out of the womb. You don't know anything.
Wet behind the ears.
Oh, is
That's
that what it was?
probably
You
it.
forgot behind the ear.
Oh.
That must have been it.
Yeah.
I always think that means you have too much gel in your hair.
Northern Wisconsin,
Okay.
Western.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
Huh, okay.
You were
We have a translator here from the UP.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
is it safe?
You know who to send to.
As these conversations continue, I could say that the planning commission.
Very much.
I think you took a
sees
straw poll.
Straw poll. That's-
And nobody's interested.
Tell them they don't like Barney trucks.
Well, you could just tell them that we want an environmental assessment and we definitely want a traffic study.
Well, when they found out it would require a special use permit, the one guy got up and sat in the car. He was like, I'm done.
Well, and then also, I mean, you can communicate that with the sensitive wetlands, our community is definitely gonna support an environmental impact assessment. And so,
Well, they've communicated to the realtor that they want to find a way to be able to develop on those wetlands too. It's just a train wreck. Everything about it is a train wreck.
you know how you fix that wetland problem, you just get rid of
Pavement,
them.
yeah. No more
Oh my
wetlands.
gosh.
Tiles.
Tile.
Maybe you
there
should
you go.
introduce them.
That's horrible.
Well, I'm surprised though.
Sometimes
Typical
realtors
realtor
egg
just
things
wanna-
on that they
And won't let
shouldn't
it go.
be. Yeah, okay.
I think the developers have gone back home. I think the realtor keeps trying to find a way to bring them back.
Interesting. We're not all like that. I speak for my people. Okay, anything else?
That is it for now.
When is Oriana, when is stuff happening with that? Do you know?
So,
I thought about that driving back from dinner.
From Oriana.
the last I spoke with to Josiak, who they've hired to work through this process, is they're just very concerned, they're very conservative about their lease and lease agreements. Dan Kelly, based on the way it's zoned, could develop back there apartments and things like that. So they're just trying to work out questions about, is that going to create a lot of traffic past our store, things like that. I think Josiak's trying to encourage them to move along with it.
Huh.
I don't know. I know they did do a fundraiser through their co-op to raise funds from members and stuff like that. 'Cause we started getting phone calls like, they're asking us for money, but have they been approved yet? I haven't really been applied yet, so.
Huh.
I know,
Interesting.
but there's a whole magazine out about it. I mean,
But yeah, they definitely made the announcement, like it's,
yeah.
that's
I
why
mean,
was
for
like,
all I
right.
know, they could have signed the lease last month and
Right.
told us, but that was the
Because
last
I
part
mean,
last
and then
about.
Dan had up on the marquee that it was Dominic's last Christmas season.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, okay. Doug, do you have anything from the board that you'd like to share with us? We're now including this on here, so if you think of anything that you think we need to know relevant from the board meetings, as you are our liaison. I don't think, we got you a title. Anything?
Right now, it's fairly quiet.
Okay.
Township.
And then Mercy, Parks and Trails Committee, I know you have one big update.
Yes. Well, first, the simple thing, we're having another meeting on January 22nd. If anybody'd like to come at 10 a.m. here at Township. Sure. On the closed Friday.
It is a Friday, but we still have our.
And then at the last board meeting, the original Park and Rec Commission was disbanded and suspended. And then the Park and Trails Committee was formed, well, already being formed. It was, I don't
You
know.
guys have pretty much formed that. and
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just kind of
it just
happened.
took over because those were the active people within the township to get done things that the Park and Rec needed. So we just kind of flip-flopped one committee for another.
And added a new
And-
one too.
And the
Oh,
trail,
and it was broken into two. So there's the Park and Trails Committee that's gonna be doing development. And then there is the Park and Trails
Park and Cemetery.
Cemetery
Group.
Maintenance Group, which is right now Amy Genema, well, two board members.
Amy Janema and.
And Gordy and the
Gordy.
supervisor, and Tom. But they set it as, it would be a committee member, a trustee, the supervisor, and the maintenance
It's,
supervisor.
I don't think
It's a Parks and
they
Trails.
didn't say anything
committee.
about a committee member, it was a trustee will be on that.
Yeah, it would be a trustee separate from
Amy
the
happens
Parks.
to be on it now.
No, it was,
She-
when I talked to Jay, he said a committee member, a trustee, the supervisor, and the maintenance. And Amy is just tied in as a committee member and a trustee. Do you know?
Amy's not a trustee.
She's
Well,
a
the
treasurer,
treasurer.
a board
She's the
member.
treasurer.
Yeah.
But I thought it was as they said a trustee
Right.
is the only one that has to be on it. Amy doesn't have to be on that board.
Right, but I know, she's a committee member of that committee, though, that's what I mean. She's representing
She,
the committee member.
Because it's a trustee, which is Gordy, a Parks and Trail Committee member,
Which is
and
just
Amy's on
Which
the
is
Parks
Amy.
and Trails Committee.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
Jay.
That's what I
I think Amy's interested in getting off, just because now you have 3 board members.
because
Oh, Jay.
Jay's automatic.
Jay's on there, 'cause he's the
Supervisor and then
supervisor.
the
As a
parks
supervisor.
maintenance guy.
But
Top.
Amy has been on the other, so they're keeping her on
Yeah.
that.
So at some point, a different liaison from the Parks and Trail Committee would get appointed.
But
It's in
But
the,
Mr. DeMarsh is on that committee too, I believe.
it's in the package.
And
No,
Steve.
this is,
That's on the Parks and Trail Committee.
yeah,
so.
there's
We
2
need
separate
We
ones.
need better names.
So the Park and Trail Committee.
Parks and Rec
Parks
is
and
gone,
Trail.
it became Parks and Trail.
Yeah.
One
and
is
Parks
like
and
the
Trails.
maintenance one, and one is like
I
the
guess
development
Planning and
and,
development.
there's one thing they did for the parks, we talked about the parks. The Sailor Park boat ramp got a big grant through
Fisheries Trust Fund,
the fish, $78,000
They did get that?
on that.
Who got it?
For this boat ramp,
For the
for
boat
the, for the boat launch down at Sailor Park.
And so that can be applied to the township's match for the boat launch, right?
Right.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yay,
That
So-
grant application is the highest scoring one of all of those.
yay!
It's the only one I think they said that they've ever done for a boat launch.
Yeah.
Ever. Yes.
Yeah, well, the boat launch was already
The
going
boat launch
forward.
will be there this coming year.
I think August 15th or 18th is the goal to have, yeah,
I
August
couldn't tell
15th.
you when that is, but for my boat, I can throw it in any place.
And if you read the Parks and Trail Committee report, basically that is looking to start developing the Bayside Park in the year 2017 through grants.
And then the board has put, I think, 63
63,
3,000
Yeah,
that's gonna be put
Aside.
into the park this
right,
year.
correct.
And Gordy wants to make sure it's this year.
Yeah, and there's,
Oh, yeah.
we're working
More
on
than
the
once.
plans for those parks, so those are solidified enough to determine what it is
Right.
that would be best done this year, because of the way grant cycles go and everything, so,
And we'll be looking at draft designs on the 22nd of the Parks and Trail Committee meeting.
Yeah.
If people are interested.
And I don't know why Amy didn't get her dad to do the design.
She talked about it at one point. I think he's aging though, she
That's
said.
what he used to do.
Yeah,
That's what
landscape
he did.
architect.
okay, anything else? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn this short meeting.
I apologize.
Motion to adjourn.
That's